Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and welcome to my podcast for badass entrepreneurs only. If you're an entrepreneur who loves hitting it hard, growing your business, and learning from billionaires how to succeed, then you are clearly badass and you are going to love my show. But if you just want to take life slow and easy, you aren't badass, don't even bother listening. For the rest of you, strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only is taking off now. Here's the truth. If there's something you want in life, really want, then in order to get it, first, you're going to have to feel afraid. A big mistake that most entrepreneurs make is the belief that you can achieve any goal with just hard work. You can't. It'll be a struggle. You'll feel like an amateur. You'll double guess all of your decisions. It'll be painful to try and fail and try and fail. And yeah, there will be cool little victories along the way. But don't get too attached to them. They won't last long. So why am I painting such a bleak picture of being an entrepreneur? I'm not. I'm giving you a reality check. Because the path to greatness is filled with overwhelming obstacles, rampant uncertainty, and plenty of disappointments. You're going to feel afraid because there's a lot to be afraid of. But when you stay the path, something truly amazing happens. You recognize that the obstacles were nothing more than opportunities. The failures, nothing more than fantastic life lessons. Little by little, you find those things that once held you back, like boat anchors, turn into rocket fuel, propelling you forward. You gain an understanding of yourself and what you're truly capable of achieving in the world. You meet others on the path, following their own ambitions. You bond. You create communities of fellow travelers. And together, you build great things that draw great admiration and great wealth. But it doesn't matter. You keep creating just for the love of creation. And then one day, you turn and look back. So far down the path now, it's hard to remember where you began. It's harder still to remember the person you were at the beginning. But what you do know for certain is that you're living an adventure that few people have dared to even begin. And when those people call you lucky or they wish that they could somehow be living your life, you say, you can. But first, I have to tell you the truth. If there's something you want in life, really want, then in order to get it, you're going to have to feel afraid. My name is Dan Gordon. I created this show to help you pull back the curtain on your world and discover what you're truly capable of achieving. I promise to open your mind, to set your thinking on fire, to show you your superhero self that you've been hiding from yourself. Come with me and enter a new reality where success is just a state of mind. If this sounds compelling to you, I'd like to help you begin. I want to send you a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. Just text the word GAP to my personal cell phone, 213-409-8366. Text the word GAP, G-A-P, to my cell phone, 213-409-8366. This book will help you on your very first steps in living an extraordinary life. Once again, text the word GAP to my personal cell phone, 213-409-8366, and get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. I am just so excited to introduce my guest for today. Phil Quartararo, or Phil Q as he's known in the music industry. He has been one of the most influential people in the music business for the last 40 plus years. And unless you're in the music business, you may have never heard of him. Phil launched Virgin Records in 1986 with Sir Richard Branson, where Phil served as CEO. He was then CEO of Warner Records, EMI, Rhythm Nation. He has personally worked with artists including, get comfortable, Linkin Park, Josh Groban, Madonna, Stevie Nicks, Cher, Eric Clapton, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faith Hill, Goo Goo Dolls, Green Day, the Spice Girls, Janet Jackson. This list goes on and on and on. Phil was named Billboard's Music Executive of the Year and is regarded as the thought leader on branding of music artists. Today, Phil is president and chairman of the Hello Group, an agency committed to pioneering the new age of talent management. And if that weren't enough, and it should be, Phil gives generously of his time sitting on the boards of the Grammy Foundation, Syracuse University, Cedars-Sinai Hospital, City of Hope, and the T.J. Martell Foundation, which is the music industry's largest funding for cancer research. And still, with all this going on and so much more, Phil still said yes when I asked him to be on our show today. He's here to give us his insights and wisdom on success in business and in life. Phil, thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Dan. Delighted to join you. Thank you very much.
Wow. I mean, what an incredible story. I mean, we haven't even gotten into it, and already it's an incredible story. I feel a little bit like I know you because I've been doing research on you for a couple of days, and
it's very kind. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's been really exciting. So, is it okay if we start at the very, very beginning?
Okay.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
So, because I want to give my audience a context of just how bold and innovative you are. All right. So, it's 1972 in Brooklyn, New York, and you're a kid in Chaminade High School. But instead of doing the usual high school stuff, you create a career for yourself, booking local music talent out of the bedroom of your home. Now, this sounds like something out of a movie. How did you become a music promoter at 16 years old?
Well, I wasn't an accomplished music promoter, but I convinced my neighbor, who was old enough to drive and able to borrow his dad's car, that we should take a ride one Saturday afternoon or evening through Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx. And we went to lots of different restaurants and bars and event halls. And I gave out a card that I made up that had my name on it and my dad's phone number, the home phone number, the family phone number. And that's all the card had on it. And I paid him $5 to fill up his gas tank. We drove around New York, and I dropped off a card anywhere I could find an open door. And I told them I could find them bands and I could find them entertainment.
How did you get people to take you seriously when you're a 15-year-old kid walking in this place with a self-made bit? Like, how did you get them to take you seriously?
I'm not sure they took me seriously. I think I probably handed out about 500 cards, and I had maybe 15 responses. So I'm not sure serious is the appropriate adjective, but nonetheless, of the 15 people who did call back, I made sure that we kept our word and we delivered a service that made sense for them. It was a lot of fun. It was more funny than anything.
Wow!
And that was that. But I knew I got enough of a taste to know that it could work.
Okay, and like just out of curiosity, like why did you pick music? I mean, out of all the things you could have done, why music? Because I mean that seemed to like drive your entire life.
But I really loved music, and music was in our house all the time. We woke up with the music playing. It was all weekend, all day. And so for me, it was a very big part of growing up. But the real moment was when I was in 1964, when I was 8 years old, and we were watching the family black and white TV in the living room, and the Ed Sullivan Show on a Sunday night introduced these four guys from England called the Beatles.
Yeah.
And they showed all the footage of that band coming to America for the first time. And I can remember looking at my dad and saying, I'm not sure what this is, but I want to be part of it.
How did you go from, hey, I should book bands, to actually walking into these places? Like, didn't you feel
I'd love to tell you yes, but no.
Go ahead. All right, great. That's
I just wasn't. You know, I've never been shy. It never occurred to me that I shouldn't try something because of fear. It just didn't occur to me.
It makes me think that you must have had a very loving household.
Well, my foundation are my parents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that kind of support.
Yeah, and you know, I I had a childhood illness that the result was I was a little bit shorter than my other classmates. And the natural inclination was that sometimes a teacher or a gym teacher would say, well, you don't really need to try this. And I was like, okay. And I'd come home and tell my parents, and they'd say, there is nothing you can't do. Nothing.
Wow. And
I went back and I'd say, there's nothing I can't do. Nothing. And that was it. That kind of, at 4 or 5 or 6 years old, that was the rule. There was nothing I can't do.
Well, I mean, what a great basis, what a great foundation, as you said, for beginning. So let's jump ahead a little bit. So then you go to Syracuse University, and I just think it's strangely ironic that your roommates turn out to be John Skies, who started MTV, and Rob Light.
Well, we were actually we should actually say classmates. We all lived in the same building.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
And Rob and I for the first couple of years, then John and I the second 2 years.
These guys were your classmates.
Neighbors and classmates. Yeah.
But it just seems like anybody who hangs out with you becomes like unbelievably successful in the music business.
They would have been wildly successful whether they ever met me or they didn't, because they are those guys.
It's 5 years later. You're out of college. You're working for A&M Records, and then you're working for RCA Records. And then you're hired as senior VP of Island Records. And that's where you discover a little band from Ireland. And I'm blanking on their name. Phil, what is it again?
When I came to Island Records in 1982, and U2 was already breaking as a rock band. And they had a huge track record worldwide as a rock band. And we were able to amplify that success for U2. But what was very important to Chris Blackwell at the time, who was running the label, he said, I really would like them to be able to cross over and have pop success so they can be the world-renowned band I know they need to be. And Scott Shannon at the time was running Z100 in New York. And Scott said to me, I don't see ever playing this record. It's a rock and roll record. It belongs on album radio. Doesn't belong on pop radio. I'm probably never going to play it. And I jammed him week after week after week for a year. And he finally said to me, if Jerry DeFran adds it at Kiss in L.A., I will add it in New York. So I called up Scott and I said, we're going to add 2 more nights at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. He says, it'll never sell. I said, okay. He says, they've already sold out 5 nights. It's not going to happen. I said, I'll make a deal with you. If they sell it out in 24 hours, you add the record. If they don't sell it out in 24 hours, I never bring the record up to you again. You'll never hear the words out of my mouth. And he said, okay, it's a deal. Then I called up Jerry DeFran and I said, if Shannon adds the record this week, I need to know you're there. If not, I'll never bring it up again. He said, it's a deal. They put the tickets on sale. Both shows sold out in 3 hours. I called up Scott Shannon. I said, turn on your radio. It's on the radio. And he hung up on me. And then I called up DeFran and he said, I already know. Shannon just called me. And he hung up on me. And the record was done and we were closed and we had a big hit record. And that was the beginning of crossing over U2 to pop radio.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you pushed really hard for these guys. And one of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with is the fear of making the wrong choice. How do you deal with the pressure of, boy, if I do this, it could totally flop?
Well, it's the old motto, isn't it? You have to play to win. You can't win the lottery unless you buy a ticket.
Right. But I think you have like this infinite ability to focus on the positive. And it's,
well, you have to.
Yeah, well, yeah, you do, but few people do. Most people focus on what can go wrong as like a precursor to try to avoid potential pain. But it's clear to me that you're focused on the possibilities of greatness, which is a really amazing thing. And it's actually part of this next part of the story, because I want to jump to 1986, so Richard Branson, who at the time was not Sir Richard Branson, he was just a guy who owned a record store in London. And he comes to you and says, Phil, I'm starting a music label. I want you to leave your high-paying, prestigious job and do something that, could kill your career. Right? And you say yes. Everyone thought you were crazy. Why did you take this 1,000,000-to-1 shot?
He was putting together the founding team of what was going to be the first real independent run in that era against the big major record companies. If you're going to do something like that and take a chance, why not let it be with a guy like Richard Branson? Why not with a company like Virgin? And when I went to tell my current employer, who at the time was Clive Davis and Arista Records, I had just gone over there and I said, look, this is what I want to do. Clive said to me what you just said to me. Well, you've got a big job. You're a big guy.
Yeah.
What if it doesn't work?
Right.
I said, if it doesn't work, I guess I'll get a job at another big company. But I said, but if it does work, it'll change my life.
Phil, few 20-somethings have that kind of perspective and courage. Most people with a job like you had, a prestigious, high-paying job, would say, look, I got a good thing here. I don't want to screw it up. But you took the leap, and it's really clear to me that that's what you like doing. And,
right.
and while you're at Virgin, you're working with artists like Smashing Pumpkins and Lenny Kravitz, Paula Abdul, the Stones, and then you're introduced to this girl band from London. And you come up with the marketing plan that's really responsible for their success.
In the mid-'90s, when we were preparing to bring the Spice Girls into the market, what was relevant, what was prevalent on radio at the time was a lot of hip-hop and a lot of bands from Seattle, like the Pumpkins and Soundgarden and Nirvana and that kind of stuff. But it was about to shift into real pop music again. So I knew that we had the Spice Girls, which is a girls band, but I know that two of my colleagues were developing two boys bands at the same time, and they were trying to race us out. One was called Boys to Men. Mm-hmm. One was called New Kids on the Block. And I said, guys, we're going to have kind of an unauthorized dinner that we're going to have a conversation that never happened.
Wow.
Here's the deal. The pendulum's going to swing back, and we're going to help it because we have the three bands that are going to make pop come back in America. But I said, you guys need to go first. And I come third behind you two guys. First of all, I'll pass you both. And second of all, I'll help you both get into number one after I get out, which is going to be after a long time of me staying in them. And they're looking at me and they say, you are crazy. I said, yep, I'm crazy, but I'm telling you the way it's going to go. And if you do what I'm saying, we're all going to end up very well set on these three bands. And they argued with me. And I said, do what you want to do.
Did they do it?
In the end, they released those two records first. I passed by both of those records, got to number one, and dropped anchor and stayed there for 3 weeks. If there's a part that I will say that I was helpful on, is that we chose the timing and the strategy the right way, and that's what really set that up.
Okay, when you go to that meeting, and they're saying, "Look, you're crazy, Phil." Is there a part of you that's saying, geez, I really hope I'm right about this one? Or do you just have a level of determination and clarity?
In our business, we can do everything right and not have a hit.
Yeah.
Or we can be completely blindsided by something that connects. When we were out working Paul Abdul's first single, we were sure we had some traction and we knew we had a real artist that could do real damage at radio. But 3 months into the record, KMEL in San Francisco said, we're testing a record at night. That is the real one. It's called Straight Up. That's the real track. You guys are chasing the wrong track. Straight Up went on MTV and on radio right out of the holiday and blew up overnight. That was not the plan. That was a surprise, but you have to think on your feet. So you can think you hear a hit record. You can hope you hear a record, but you don't know you have a hit record until the bands tell you do.
See, what's so interesting to me as I'm listening to you is that I work with entrepreneurs who launch products, services, ideas, and it's this thing that they build up and work on and love, and it's their baby. With you it's like you're launching product after product after product, because each one of these bands is essentially a different product. And,
that's right.
And so your ability to package them and focus them and get them to appeal to the right audience is astounding. The other thing that's interesting to me during this time is your association with Mariah Carey. Now, she had been with Capitol Records for over a decade, and I heard that you convinced her to end her 10-year relationship with Capitol and come to Virgin. This is an incredible sales job. How did you do that?
I only had one meeting with her when it came to her moving over. And if that's what came out of that, that's great. But what I told her is the same thing I tell any artist I sit across from, which is I can't promise you number one records. I can't promise you 1 million sales. I promise you 3 things. Number one, I promise we'll be your partner. Number 2, I promise you we'll work every day as hard as you work, 100%. And number 3, I'm always going to tell you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it, about you or your record or your persona in the marketplace.
And she probably felt, okay, this guy's going to take care of me. This guy isn't a bullshit artist. He's actually concerned about me. And I don't know that you give yourself enough credit for that, Phil. I don't know that.
At the end of the day, an artist signs to a record company, but it's like any other relationship, especially when it concerns artists. A record company is a living thing. It's people. Mm-hmm. Who's going to work for you? Who's going to listen to your creative dream and what your passion is and how you want to present your art?
Yeah. And one of the things I do is I show people their superpowers. I mean, you live inside of Phil, you've lived inside of Phil all of your life. And I
for better or for worse.
Well,
yes.
From the moment we started talking, I mean, I knew right away, well, this is somebody unique, right? This is somebody who really cares. You just have that quality about you. And I think that emanates from you in a way that you might not even realize, because I would say
that's nice of you to say, but I think the bottom line is, I think that's true of everybody, but I think
you're far from it. Anyway, I want to move on.
The simple view for me is I do the best I can do. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest. I may not say what you want to hear, but I'm going to say the truth and do my best for you. And that's just what it is.
And that's a big part of any success. So now it's 1997. Warner Brothers sees what you did with the Spice Girls and they say, we want you to be president of our company, right? They're the number one record company in the world, and you said yes. Now that doesn't surprise me, because you have an ability to step into doing new and challenging things, seemingly without a lot of fear. But Warner's a pretty big pedestal to fall off of if that doesn't work. Did you feel like, man, I got things going here at Virgin. Maybe I should just stick around here where it's safe?
I knew from a very young age that the only company that I would ever want to run, if I got a chance to run one of the big companies, would be Warner's. And even all the years of building Virgin, as much as I love everything about what we built at Virgin, when the opportunity came to be the president of what I perceived to be the largest artist company in the world, that was something I felt like a challenge that I had set for myself many years before. I never thought the chance would come, but when it came, I felt I needed to do that for myself. Quincy Jones was very influential in me going to work at Warner's. And he sat me down and he said, they're going to offer you this job. And when they do, I want you to know the reason I put you up for the job is this. I want you to help get these guys to all talk to each other. Gotcha. And I met Bob Daly and Terry Semmel, who at the time were running the film and music division. And they were wonderful. And Bob told me the same thing. So it made perfect sense. I knew I could do that job. And at the same time, work with the artists I revered the most my entire career.
God, that's a great story. So we're tight on time. So I want to jump ahead. I want to talk about the thing I've been most interested to talk to you about. So we're now in 2002. You're at Warner and EMI comes sniffing around. And they lure you away by making you executive VP of marketing for EMI. And I think you saw it as an opportunity to completely change the way that the industry does business. I'm just going to say, you took a record company essentially out of the business of selling records, which sounds crazy. And instead, you turned them into a music marketing company.
That's what, don't forget, this is now 2002. The industry is changing. We're coming out of the physical business. The dynamics are changing. The fan is changing. And the record companies were not changing as fast as I thought they needed to. And I thought that job would give me the chance to get my hands dirty in a place where I could maybe connect more with consumers and brands. So on the marketing, on the distribution side, we were the first I remember saying to the guys running the company at the time, David Munns and Alon Levy, I said, if you're the largest record company in the business or you're the smallest, you have an obligation to be bold. And I said, for our company, we should do something bold. And I thought that what bold would mean for our distribution company was to completely shift from being a sales-oriented company to be a marketing-oriented company. In other words, instead of being a pull company in a pull business, being a push business.
Yes.
And they liked that and admired it. And I gave them a full plan. We put it all together and we went for it. And we completely changed over distribution in the company. And it ended up being used by some of the other majors to some degree afterwards. I don't want to say it's because of us, but it worked for us. It made a big difference. And it was a significant and monumental change in the industry at that time.
It is because of you, Phil. You created a new template for how the music industry makes money. And I want you to admit that.
We really, for being the smallest major at EMI, at that time, I think we were 11 or 12% of the marketplace. We really moved the needle on a couple of levels over those 3 or 4 year periods. In fact, I know that a lot of the schematics we used in those days have reappeared in later incarnations in different companies over the last few years. I think that's nice.
Was this partially a response to Napster and pirating, that you saw that the music industry had to change?
But one of the biggest sins that the record industry committed in the early 90s, well, in the late 90s to the early 2000s, really was, I don't think we were listening to the fans as well as we needed to.
The fans.
And one of the things they were telling us is they wanted to consume music in a different, better way. And that's what we were trying to do at EMI, and I think we largely succeeded.
And there were so many mistakes, like Metallica suing their own fans and trying to litigate this. I love a quote.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't comment on other people's. I
get that. But I mean, that's me. I love this quote of yours. You said, "The old record business didn't get killed; it committed suicide. The industry didn't listen to its consumers."
The record business up to that point had been a retail business that decided it knew better what their customer wanted than what the customer told them. We were all guilty of that in that era. But it's adjusting. It's resetting as we speak.
But it seems to me that your work at EMI was in reaction to that, and you were scrambling to find a better way.
I was just thinking about how do we shorten the line between the artist and the fan.
I remember people saying at that time, I would buy the music if there was a way to do it. And when iTunes showed up, me and my friends, that's what we did. We bought the music. We stopped downloading it because we didn't want to steal it. We just wanted that.
The headline was about us giving a better value product at a better value price. That was part of what we had not gotten right that we've gotten better at.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting cultural behavior.
Yeah. I say this a lot. Nothing great was ever created alone. And, we had we had the Wright brothers. We had Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. We have Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, so clearly you weren't operating in a vacuum. Who were your mentors? Who did you look up to? Who helped you?
Well, the most important mentor in my life was my dad, because he was a guy who always was a man of service, generous, kind, strong, and forceful, but on the good side. And my mom, of course. But of the people I worked for, Jerry Moss has been he's the guy that brought me into the business. Chris Blackwell, always very, very supportive and helpful. And of course, Richard. I think they probably were the most important people in my formative years in terms of helping me learn what the business really was.
Got it.
And how to do the right thing and the wrong thing.
Do you have a career milestone? And when I say that, I mean something that really stands out, either like what we might call a tremendous success or a tremendous learning experience, thing that didn't exactly work out the way that you planned. Do you have a career milestone like that?
At the end of the day, the thing I care about is that we are bringing the very best experience to the fan of their favorite music and musicians, and that any small part I can play to protect the sanctity of a song and a songwriter above and beyond anything else, That's the single thing I want to leave as my contribution.
Got it. I'm going to get back to this. In 2013, you said something that I think was very prophetic. You said, today's curator of music is the brand. Lifestyle brands are using music as their currency.
I think today's curator is the brand. Well, music is becoming one of the great denominators to attract consumers to your brand.
In 2013, that was like a lot of foresight. What did you see that made you say that?
At one point, I was lucky enough to work with Tina Turner, and we ended up getting this deal for Tina.
In Hollywood, Tina Turner endured pouring rain and a smoke machine during the making of her first commercial.
I don't put limits on my life.
And they did the most beautiful commercial of her strutting across the stage. And the commercial got tremendous acclaim. The sales of the product went through the roof. But even more so, Tina's catalog sales went through the roof. And all of a sudden, everybody sat up and said, wait a minute, this is a good idea. The other very good example was with another artist that I spent many years working with, Sting. There was a point where he had a song on the radio that was doing not so great. And they put Sting into a Jaguar commercial. And the song that was struggling to radio all of a sudden exploded and became a hit.
Huh.
And there were a couple of cases like that, like Tina, like Sting, that kind of took the stink off the idea of artists working with brands. And it all kind of happened within a couple of years. And it went from no way, don't tell me about it, to what can you find for me?
Right.
Which was great.
I think what you saw was an evolution of how music reached people's ears. And, you know, without the old model of just record sales and with the increasing piracy, like we got to get these into people's ears. And so suddenly selling your music to sell products isn't something that takes away from artistry, but actually enhances it.
Became more acceptable.
Yes, right. I want to talk about what you're doing now with the Hello Group. And you know, it's an entertainment multimedia agency. And I look at this and I think, wow, you know, you've come a long way from that kid sitting in his bedroom booking bands in Brooklyn. I mean, did you ever just look back and say, how the hell did I end up here?
Look, the Hello Group is a great opportunity for me. I met a couple of very young, bright brothers who came from London. They're extraordinarily talented. They're hardworking. They come with the same work ethic that I grew up with, which is a hard thing to find in people who are 26 and 24 years old, but they have it.
Sure.
Look, I'm old enough at this point that I only want to do things that I love, and I only need to do things that I love with people that I love. So that's what I'm doing.
Going through all this research and looking over the course of your career, it seems to me that you're a guy who looked at the way that things were done and said, we can do this better. Let's tear down this model and create something new. Let's innovate and take bold chances for bold results. And it's something that I work on encouraging entrepreneurs to do all the time, to step out of the pattern and to create something new. The struggle with that is getting people on board. So how did you do that? When you looked at something and said, we should change this and try something new, and people naturally are resistant to change, how do you get them on board and excited about your idea?
When I sit across from somebody and I have a different idea or I want to try something new, I always say, if we're going to do something that's been done before, or we're just going to be an also ran, there's no value in that. I don't want to be the second guy or the 22nd guy to do anything. For me, it's all about doing something different and better.
Yeah. And I think
if you can do something different and or better, then you do it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work and you try something else. But if you try something different and better, and you really know if you're really committed to it, a lot of times it's going to work.
I wish I could infuse that thinking into everybody that I work with, because what you just said is key, in that you realized the playground that you were playing in, and there was a lot of room, but you still respected that the playground still had a fence around it, and you didn't push on that fence just to push. The other thing that you did is you pointed out the better world that the company could be living in, and you set that as the Emerald City, the place to head to. Essentially saying where we are is fine, but there's nothing here. This thing over here, that's where the action is.
Look, when we started Virgin Records in America, we made a conscious decision to try and build something that was different and better. When we got to EMI and we wanted to redesign what conventional distribution looked like, we set out to do something that was different and better. And with the Hello Group as an example, we're trying to infuse something that is different and better. So while the stage changes and the cast members change, the story's not so different.
Yeah. I want to give you one last quote that I found about you that I think really sums you up. Somebody said, "I define Phil Q as truth meets music." So with that, in your truth, what do you see as the next stage of music?
What I know works is what the fan finds compelling. And you never know what it's going to be. You know, when we signed Norah Jones, I knew it was good. I knew it was beautiful. I knew her pedigree was prominent. But that song became magical for people, that first track.
Yeah.
You can't predict that. You just cannot predict what that is. But at the end of the day, our ultimate journey is to bring the best quality music to as many people as we can. It is that simple. And as Ahmet Ertegun told me when I was a very young promotion man, he said, forget all the titles. There's only two kinds of music. It's either good music or it's not good music. And it's just that simple. And as I get older, I think Ahmet probably told me something pretty smart.
You brought a level of integrity to a business that can often have a reputation of a lack of integrity. It's clear that you stood by your word, but more than that, you were bold and resolute. You were innovative. You looked at the possibilities and you gave it a shot with the thought of, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know, we can always go back to the way that it was, but if we don't do something new, nothing new is going to happen. And because of that, you have literally changed the entire world of the music industry, because you set in many times you set a tone, you set a standard that everybody else followed because it worked. And well, again, I'll tell you that I think that's a generous statement, which is very nice. But if I was to reclassify what you just said, which again is very generous and very flattering, and I appreciate it, that my view would be is we always did our best. We always tried to serve our artists, and we always tried to do something different and better. Well, and if that can stick past my time here, then I think we won. I think it will, and thank you. What a beautiful way to wrap this up. I just want to give a reminder to my audience. You can get my blueprint for life called Jumping the Gap. Kill your story and take action. Just text the word GAP to my phone, 213-409-8366. Text the word GAP, 213-409-8366, and get my book, Jumping the Gap. Kill your story and take action for free. Phil, thank you so much for your time, for your input, for your wisdom. Really appreciate having you on the show. And
thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks. And I wish you nothing but the best going forward.
Thanks very much.
Be well, my friend. And before we wrap up, I want to remind you to get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. It will help you take bold new action on your entrepreneurial journey. Text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. And I also want to thank you. Yeah, you. The you who is listening to this show right now. Thank you for opening your mind and stepping into the world of infinite possibilities. My guests, all of them, breathe the same air you do. There's nothing stopping you from taking bold action, opening up your world, challenging yourself to step up and live your life unlimited. I'm Coach Dan Gordon. Thanks for listening. Now get out there and show the world the next greatest version of you. Hey, if you have some thoughts about the show you'd like to share with us, or if you think you've got what it takes to be a guest, send me a text at 213-409-8366. Let me know what you think, or let me know why you think you'd be a great guest for this show. Thanks again for listening. I hope you're inspired to unleash your badass self on the world.